It was 1965, and the Beatles were everywhere. As they geared up for their second movie, they needed a fresh song for the title track, and John Lennon was commissioned to write it. Thus began the life of arguably one of their best songs, especially of their earlier period, and Help was born.
Help, I need somebody, help, not just anybody.
The track was a reflection of Lennon's internal struggles, wrapped up in a song that managed to sound upbeat even though it was anything but. Behind its pop polish, Help was, in Lennon's own words, a cry for help. The original plan for the movie's title was 8 Arms to Hold You, which sounds like it would have been a laughably odd name for a Beatles film. The idea didn't stick, and eventually, they settled on Help. Lennon went home and got to work on the song, with Paul McCartney joining in to add his own touch, a counter melody that ended up being the perfect complement to Lennon's lines. They played the finished song for Lennon's wife Cynthia and journalist Maureen Cleave. Both seemed impressed, and Help was on its way. While it's easy to assume the song is just another fast and fun Beatles track, the story beneath it is far more complex. Lennon admitted years later that he was crying out for help at the time, though he hadn't realized it fully back then. The whole Beatlemania scene was taking its toll. He felt isolated, uncomfortable in his own skin, and increasingly insecure. To make things worse, he felt stuck in a lifestyle that seemed to be speeding out of his control, living what he called his Fat Elvis period, struggling with overindulgence and discontent. Looking back, Lennon recognized that the lyrics in the song revealed his inner state, even though its bright and energetic tempo might have suggested otherwise. On April 13, 1965, the Beatles arrived at Abbey Road Studios for the recording. They worked through 12 takes in a single night, transforming the song from a ballad into the brisk rock number we know today. Lennon sang lead, with McCartney and Harrison backing him up. Harrison added lead guitar lines, and Ringo rounded things out on drums and tambourine. With only 4 tracks available, producer George Martin and engineer Norman Smith pulled a creative move, layering some of the recordings together in what's called a reduction mix to make room for additional parts. This approach is what opened up space for Harrison's distinctive descending guitar arpeggios, which became one of the song's defining elements. The production also included some unique mixing choices. For instance, the mono and stereo versions of Help differ in some small but noticeable ways. Ringo's tambourine is more prominent in the mono version, and Lennon's doubled vocals in the first refrain were ultimately dropped in the final mix. Each version has its quirks, which adds to the character of a song that clearly went through some trial and error. When Help hit the charts in July 1965, it was an instant success, topping both the UK and US charts for 3 weeks. Despite this, not all fans were thrilled with the direction the Beatles were taking. Some missed the classic, carefree sound of earlier hits like A Hard Day's Night, but the deeper themes of Help hinted at a new phase for the band, a turn towards self-reflective songwriting that would come to define Lennon's contributions to the Beatles' later albums. For Lennon, Help was real and honest, a snapshot of his own emotional unrest during a whirlwind era. Years later, Lennon would look back on the recording and express a desire to redo it as a slower, more soulful track. He felt the original recording didn't fully capture the song's emotional weight, a sentiment that speaks volumes about his journey as an artist. By that point, he was more interested in getting to the heart of his music rather than just hitting the top of the charts. The song gave fans a glimpse into Lennon's life beyond the fame, and it set the stage for the introspective songs that would follow on Rubber Soul and Revolver. The contrast between the song's lively beat and the personal struggle embedded in its lyrics revealed Lennon's increasing awareness of himself and his inner conflicts. Perhaps for Lennon, the track was a reminder that even in all the chaos of his fame, he could still channel his own truth into his music. But for us, the listeners and the fans, it's Lennon's legacy of self-discovery, laid bare for anyone who listens closely